In the last video, we got up to this stage where we had this facade that we then imported into Revit, which was really cool because now we've got a nice workflow between Revit and Rhino. But what we want to do is build up this facade. Obviously, we're not going to have these panels or these fins just on one side of the building. This is going to wrap around the entire building, hopefully look really nice. But what we need to do is actually now model those in, and we're going to go back to Rhino to do so. This video has been taken for my Rhino and Revit Workflow Beginners course. If you're interested in designing some really cool things inside of Rhino and having the ability to document them inside of Revit as well, then this course is perfect for you. It's over 2 hours long and mimics a real life project, which is actually my studio project. And you get access to all of the course files and all the materials you need to be able to successfully work between Revit and Rhino. I'll see you there. So one thing I wanted to do was have a few design options, and one of those options was to have these fins come all the way down, whereas I'm not sure if I want that to happen or if they should go to this bottom of the curtain wall there. So I'm going to redo these and save this as a different file and then give that a test, see if that's a better option. Another thing that we want to test out is obviously the facade's going to come down this side and the main entrance of the building is down here. What we want to consider is whether the facade comes out as a canopy roof and whether that comes out and kicks out as a straight panel or if it curves with these fins. And obviously that's something we're going to have to detail up to figure out, but just as a design option, we want to test those out here in Rhino. And then on this side, the facade is going to curve around and follow until the core starts, and the core is going to not have the fins over it. So these panels then come out and the fins go all the way around the building apart from where the core is. And that is a very large core, but it's all functional. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to talk to my group because this is a group studio project and I'm trying to figure out what we're thinking for these fins. So that's why I might be a bit back and forth. That's why I need these design options. So now before I do anything, I'm gonna make sure I save this as option 1. So you can see Rhino 2 facade, that's fine. If we save this, now what we can do once it's saved is then save it as. I'm gonna go file, of course it's not responding, typical. I'm gonna save as, I'm gonna call this Rhino 3, and we're gonna call this shorter facade option. How about that? We'll save that. Now when we work, we're not going to be destructively, going backwards on our design. So now what I'm going to do is just undo those last two things, which was the extrude curve and the tween curves as well. And I'm just going to actually get rid of that one as well. I think I'm just going to delete that. And this curve here, what I want to do is bring it up. So I'm going to go to the front perspective. I'm going to go to the front view, sorry. And I'm just gonna make sure it comes up to here. So I'm going to explode this curve and I'm going to select this bottom point here and bring that up to the bottom of the curtain wall. I'm just gonna make sure that's on the right point. It looks to be like it is. It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe if we select it, we can see it then. Being yellow, you can't really, but you can see that point is on the bottom down here. That works well. If we go back to our front view, going to then actually just delete this point here, delete this point here, bring this point in line with that other line we've got there. So now it's coming in and attaching to that facade, which I think is going to look better, but I mean, that's why we're testing it. So again, I'm going to now join these three lines. I'm going to go to the top view. I'm going to copy these over to that same point as earlier in the previous video, that would be. So bring this over all the way to the end of building, and we want to place this onto the last mullion that is there. We want it to be on the inside. So I'm going to just place that there, press enter, go to our perspective view because this is probably too high up, too low. As you can see, it's not the right height. So if we go to a front view, we can then line this up. It's going to press move this entire thing up to there, but we want to disable it so that it's not locking onto it. So now you can see we've got those 2 points. Now what I'm going to do, edit this line here so that we can tween between them. So I'm going to go to that front view and we just want to move these points around so that we can have a little bit of a different shape. So I'm just going to move this out here, move this one in and down. This one can go in and down as well. And I think we want this to be a bit more crazy when it comes to the actual wave of it. So we're going to just, I guess, exaggerate this a bit more and we'll see how it looks. So I think something like that would look pretty good. Now what we're going to do is select those two lines. I'm just holding shift to select both of them. I'm going to use the tween curves command. And again, we're going to want 26 as the number of curves between these 2 points. And then we can have that 1400 mil spacing for each fin. We're just going to double check these options. They all look fine. I'm going to hit enter. Select the last points created or the last objects created. And then also select both of these points or both of these curves. Wrong terminology, sorry. And we're just going to extrude these curves by typing extrude curve 75 in that left direction. We're going to make them solid. Click OK. And now we've got that shorter facade. And I'm actually going to open up Enscape again to see what this looks like. You guys that have, watched the Revit course and stuff, you'd know that I like using Enscape as a design tool, not just as a visualization tool, but it's good because you can actually walk around your model and you can see what it looks like as a person, which is such a great tool. All right, so let's go down to the ground level. There you can see, oh, okay, so there's a beam or something there. I'm not too sure what that is because I didn't design that part of the building, but you can see those work really nicely actually. I'm gonna have to cut them out where this void space is. I quite like that look better than it did before. I'm gonna just send this to the chat and see what the others think, but I quite like that. So I'm just gonna render this out. Alright, so we've sent that to the group. What I'm actually gonna do is just delete these few extrusions that are in here, the ones that aren't on the mullions. I think this extrusion here would go up against those mullions, so we'll keep them. But let's have a look at what this looks like in Enscape. So that's not bad. Maybe they even fold inside it. Who knows? Again, we'll just do a render of that just to show what it looks like. Alright, so now what we're going to do is test out this roof canopy thing. What I'm actually going to do is just select both curves that we used before so we can keep it consistent. Just going to copy these, make sure we've got that selected, bring this up, copy these down to the bottom facade bit here. Doesn't really matter where we place them at the moment, but what we're going to do is rotate these 90 degrees and we're just going to go way and that way. And now we can align these up in the right spot. Just going to move this one over so we can see what we're working with. Going to move this in line with the outside of the mullion. Then again, move this one to the inside of the mullion. So then when we extrude it, they go, the right way. These aren't going to be at the right height. Now again, you can see there. So what I'm going to do is move these. We'll go to the front view, select that bottom point. Then I'm just going to bring these down without that selected and make sure that as close as we can get to these other fins as well. So if we look at that in 3D, that looks pretty good. So now if we wanted to keep this shape of the fins the whole way around the building, we would just, tween between them and then extrude the curves. But we're going to try and attempt this canopy thing. To do so, what I'm going to do is just pull these points out to then create that canopy. And then we're going to tween between them and extrude it. I'm going to set this bottom view to the right. So now if we come here, we can select this line. You can see that if we pull the points out, it's going to create that, I guess, roof canopy extrusion. But obviously it's still pulling that other point as well that is, joined to this. So if we undo that, we need to explode both of these. So I'm just going to highlight both of them, select both of them and type explode. Now on this point or this line here, if we move it, you're going to see it doesn't move that other point as well, which is good. Roughly, we want it to come out probably to the front of the terrace. In fact, we don't want to move that one. We want to move this right one first because this is going to be the longer one. The intention is for the facade to kind of come out and follow this shape of the terrace below. So the roof's going to come down here, 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 and get shorter towards this left side. So for this curve here, I'm going to select this point, go to the right view and bring it out. And we're going to have to figure out how far out we want that to extrude out to, but it probably will be in line with this point. I reckon that looks good as is. So now what we can do is select this other line and I'm going to move that point out only a fraction of the way, probably up to about there. I'm thinking what would be cool is if the bottom line wasn't straight and it in fact had this wave that's on the outside but now underneath. So what I'm going to do is draw in that line. If we go to the right view, if we use the polyline tool, we're going to turn on object snaps, bring this all the way over to snap with that line there. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to rebuild this line by typing rebuild, and we want to give it maybe, I'm going to say 6 points just to play with that wave. So if I bring this up a little bit, and then this point down a little bit, and then again up a little bit, and then this one here can come down, so then it folds up like that. I think that's going to look pretty cool. We can do the same thing for the other line as well. So I'm going to bring this back, make sure it snaps onto loud helicopter. I'm going to snap this onto that point there as well. I'm going to rebuild it. And this one's only going to have, oops, not redo, we want to rebuild this. This is going to have 4 points on it. And we can just lift that point there and then lower that one. In fact, I might actually do the opposite. That might look pretty cool. So if we do it something like that, then when we tween between them, let's see if that works. Now, obviously we want to set these points like we did in the previous lesson. I'm going to type set and set point will come up. We want to set the, I reckon, the x-axis in line with this line here. So that works well. And we can do the same for this one as well. And I'm just going to select this line so we know that it's straight and it's on the same axis for each point. What I want to do now is select all of these points or all of these curves, and I'm going to join them. I'm going to do the same for the other side. I really make this difficult for myself by doing it in 3D, but that's okay. All right, they're all selected. I'm going to join them. Now if we type tween curves, you can see that we've got this tween between them, and I'm not sure if this is the look that we were going for, but I'm going to say that's okay. For the number, we're going to want to double check the distance of the facade. So if I go to Revit again, going to go to the ground floor plan, actually sorry, the typical floor plan. We're just going to double check the distance of this facade. So from this mullion here to the outside of the mullion there, or maybe the inside, I reckon. And that's 10,100. So if we go 10,100 divided by 1,400, we're going to need about 7 of these fins. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to change this number to 7. All right, so that looks pretty cool. If we select the objects, the last created objects, select these two on the ends, and then type extrude curve. Now, these might get a bit messy. If we click yes, we can just test this out. We want it to be 75, solid yes. Let's see if this works. My fingers are crossed. I'm hoping it does. And here is that canopy. All right. So all in all, that worked pretty well actually. You can see it's got that cool little shape to it. It's pretty funky really. I'm honestly not sure about it, because that's it coming out straight, which was one of the options. The other option is to then follow the curve like that. I'm gonna have to send this to the group, see what they think. So what do you guys think about this? I'm actually not sure. I think these shouldn't be so pointy, that's for sure. They are very pointy. And I'm not sure about that wave on the bottom of them. Looks a bit like a dagger. Actually, that's a pretty cool render there. I might take that one and send it to them as well. Let's see what it looks like with the other layers turned back on. If we just turn them all off and on. You know what? I actually don't mind that. Pretty funky, really. Now, for this other side, I'm literally just going to select those extrusions and mirror them. So I'm just going to select everything on this side like this. And now what we can do is use the mirror command. Going to just mirror, and we want to try and get the mid, which is about there, I believe, and mirror it like that. Now, whether these have lined up properly, don't think they have, but what we can just do is select the last created objects. So I'm just going to use the align command, and I want it to align from the left, and we're just going to turn on the object snap, object snaps, and then we'll line it up to that point there. And now what we need to do is delete the ones that are running through the core, because we definitely don't want them. So I'm actually just going to select the last created objects and unhighlight just these extrusions. So I'm holding control and I'm just going to deselect the extrusions. Best way to do this is probably in a top view. So then the ones we want to keep we're deselecting, whereas the other ones we can then just delete. And we don't need any of the actual polylines either. So I'm just going to hit delete. And there we go. Now they wrap around the side as well. We're going to have a look at that in Enscape, which we don't have open. So now you can see that facade is on all the way around the building, aside from the north face, which is the back. And what we want to look at is also these junctions. You can see that looks pretty good being at the right angle, but there might be another fin that comes on the 45 as well. Now we're just going to have this wrap around the back side as well. Now to do this north side, I'm just going to copy these extrusions that are on the west side as well. So I'm just going to select only the extrusions, and then we'll use the copy command to then bring them onto the north face. Probably enough. Maybe we can just go for a couple more. I'm going to use the copy command. Now I'll select this bottom point and I'll just drag them up to this point here. Click enter, select the last created objects, rotate them. We're just going to rotate them 90 degrees. Now we can use the align tool and we're going to align from the bottom and we'll align it to the edge of the facade. Now I'm going to actually group all of these and then align them again to the right, and this is just so they don't all get pushed over to the right. Then select that point there, and now we can probably ungroup them. Just select the ones that we don't need, and this extrusion here, it's going to be on an angle. It's going to be following these mullions. So I'm just going to use the align again, go from the bottom and align it to here, and I just use the angle tool to find out that that is a 67.5 degree angle. So I'm going to rotate this, move this over. We're going to make this 90 minus 67.5. 90 minus 67.5 is 22.5. So we're going to move this over 22.5. Now what we can do, align this once more. We're going to align the right to that point there. And as well, we're going to align the bottom. So you can see they're not the correct dimensions. Obviously this curtain wall is going to be changed to accommodate the 75mm thick fins, as well as the spacings of being 1400. You can see they don't line up at the moment. So there's probably not much point me modeling these in right now, but that's so you can get the general idea of it. If we go to Enscape, you can even see how that will look when it's angled, and that would actually look pretty damn cool. But all in all, that's starting to look really nice, and we can come back to those corners at another time. But let's go ahead and add this facade to our Revit model. As seen in the previous video, I've just modeled up this facade and roof canopy thing that we want to export into Revit. And the way to do that is very simple. We're going to go make sure that this file is clean. So I'm going to select all the layers that we aren't exporting out. So that's everything apart from the facade. And now I'm going to just select all the objects on this layer, which is all of the things that we want to export out. And now what we can do is go to File, Export Selected. I'm going to use the drop down menu to save this as a acis.sat file. And I'm going to just name this as maybe facade. And then we can make this option 2. Save that out. Use the default settings, they are fine. And it's saying that no curves will be exported, which again is fine because we only want the extrusions anyway. So that's good. We can click OK. Now, once that's exported, we can go back into Revit and you can see the current facade is there, but I'm going to go to a 3D view and I'm actually going to go to my 3D view. It's a bit cleaner. And you can see that this is the old facade. So what I'm going to do is delete that. And I need to unpin it first. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go to the Insert tab and click Link CAD. And you might be thinking, but Kyle, this isn't a CAD file. It's a .sat file, but that's okay. We can change this type of file. It will originally be DWG. We can change that to ACIS, a .sat file, and then we can choose the facade that we want. And for us, considering that the Rhino model has had this Revit model exported into it, so the origins are all exactly the same. The origin to internal origin is fine. We want to place this at level 1, but it's not going to give us that option. So that's fine. We can just click open once we select it, obviously. Option 2, we can open this. And once this loads in, we can just change the level of it. And then you've got yourself a Rhino model as a mass inside of Revit. And there are ways to change this mass or this Rhino import into native Revit components, such as walls and roofs. To do that, you'll have to go to the Massing and Site tab, and then you can model it by a face or something similar. But as you can see, that's just imported our facade into this Revit model, which is perfect. We can change the material of it by going to the Manage tab and going to Object Styles, and we can change the imported objects material from this render material. Let's say we want it to be our, I think we were doing something like copper or aluminium or something. I'm just going to make it copper. We can apply that. When we go into a shaded view, you'll see that this is now copper, and that doesn't come out too well in that shaded view, so we can try the realistic view. There we go. We can see that it's now copper and that facade is in. Perfect. Now remember, I said we want to change the level, otherwise it's currently on level 0, which is not actually our ground floor. Level 1 is our ground floor, so I'm going to change that to level 1 by changing the base level constraint. Once that's applied, you'll see it move up, and that is much better than it was. The good thing about inserting this in by linking it is that anytime we then update this file, it's going to update inside of Revit as well. So we don't need to relink anything. It automatically does it for you being linked in. That's opposed to trying to import the CAD, which is just going to mean it's a one-time thing, and then you'll need to relink it if you want to change it or delete it and then import something else. So for the most part, that's how you create this waved facade, this thin facade in Rhino. And in that other video, you've been shown how to then export that into Revit and then have that in or linked to your Revit file, so that every time you update this file and you save over the original file, it's going to update inside of Revit, which is perfect for what we need.